Wind is the most expensive form of energy, and it destroys the beauty of your fields and your plains and your waterways. Wind needs massive subsidy. And you are paying in Scotland and in UK and all over the place where they have massive subsidies to have these ugly monsters all over the place. So I've restricted windmills in the United States.
Clean energy, solar power and onshore wind are markedly lower cost than oil, gas and coal. And they give us greater energy security. The fuel source is free.
The whole thing is a con job. It's very expensive. And in all fairness, Germany tried it, and wind doesn't work. You need subsidy for wind, and energy should not need subsidy. With energy, you make money. You don't lose money.
Mr. Speaker, if we are to have a future, the oil and gas industry must have no future. That is for the simple scientific fact that fossil fuels, oil, gas and coal, in their combustion produce carbon dioxide that heats the planet's atmosphere in a way that causes a destabilized climate and extreme weather events and sea level rise and all sorts of catastrophes that are an existential threat to life on this planet, not just for us, Mr. Speaker, but for all species that live on this planet.
You could take 1,000 times more energy out of a hole in the ground this big. This big. It's called oil and gas.
You want an inheritance tax at 33% for anything over $1 million. How would that affect farms that have been handed down from generation to generation?
For the vast majority of people, we know that those inheritances are not going to be passed down to just one individual sole person. But again, this is the point of putting this forward so that we are able to say, hey, look, if there are serious issues that people can foresee, let's deal with the evidence, let's deal with the data. Right. And I'm looking forward to getting in front of farmers and agricultural audiences to have this discussion.
Well, to my question, how would that affect farms? So if the average farm is worth about $7 million, back in the envelope at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, based on the most recent figures, about $5 million is the average dairy farm sale.
Okay, so if it's $5 million and the first million, we don't include that in the inheritance. So basically, if you're handing it down between generations, that might have happened for 3 generations previously, you're going to be paying a 33% tax on $4 million.
And if we can
how are farmers going to do that?
If we can just bring it back to the bigger picture here, what we're talking about, from the most recent available data that we have, is that the average wealth of a household in this country is about $433 million at the highest possible at the retirement age.
That question though, right? That's a very important question. So how are farmers going to do that? How are they going to pay a 33% tax on a $4 million?
Let's get the data and let's get the evidence and let's see how big of an issue this actually is. If we're to look at different...
It's going to be an issue that affects every dairy farm in the country.
I hear you, and what I'm telling you is that we currently don't have good data on this stuff, which is why we are very proud to be pushing the boat out, putting this policy on the table and saying if there are issues that people have, let's have a rational discussion about that. We're not going to be silly about it. Of course we want to understand where potential fish hooks are.
If you can't tell us how you've accounted for that risk and you want to be considered adult and serious...
What I'm telling you is that we have accounted for those risks, but I don't have those specific figures for you off the top of my head, and I'm more than happy to come back to you on that. And I'm more than happy to talk about the substance of all of this, but again, I don't think that it's a constructive debate if we're just focusing on those gotcha moments.
So it's not a gotcha moment. I mean, this is the detail of the policy that you've put forward, and this is a central part of that policy.
We ended the estate tax. There is no estate tax on farmers. So when a parent leaves their farm, because again, a lot of these farms, they don't make a lot of money, but it's a way of life, and they love their way of life, and they love that dirt. That dirt is the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. They love it. I mean, they're farmers. They love doing it. They don't know how to do anything else, but they don't want to do anything else.
Why didn't you invoke this law in your first term? You could have taken in billions upon billions of dollars in your first term, but you waited until your second term.
Yeah, because in my first term, I was fighting lunatics like you who were trying to do things incorrectly and inappropriately to a president that was duly elected.
We arrived on a beach in the tip of the East Cape, about to be welcomed to the Kauai marae, in that spectacular part of the country where the rising sun first hits these islands through the sea air. And we were greeted by a haka of 500 people. Biggest haka since James Cook had arrived in that part of the country. I'm hoping we were more worthy of it than he was.